Grayson, help me out. I'm begging you. Grayson hesitated. His friend Paul, the train conductor, had serious family problems, and he asked Grayson, who was currently on vacation, to fill in for him on the trip. 10 years ago, Grayson also worked as a conductor, but since then, he left the railroad. The man sighed. Honestly, he was bored on vacation. He used to travel around the country during vacations with his best friend, the faithful dog, Kinder. But it had been a year and a half since Kinder had been missing, and Grayson did not want to travel without him at all. Kinder appeared at his house unexpectedly. His colleagues presented him with a little puppy for his birthday. They wrapped him in a big Kinder surprise, and Grayson at first thought it was something ordinary, traditional. He unwrapped the present, and from there a real puppy was looking at him with wide open eyes. Grayson was shocked. He had been dreaming about a dog for a long time, but had never had one because he was afraid he would not be able to provide a decent care for the dog. But he had doubted himself for nothing. He and Kinder became not just friends, but rather like soulmates. When the dog was 3 years old, it disappeared. It happened at a city festival because of the fireworks. Grayson had been looking for the dog for a whole year. He had been visiting animal shelters and neighborhoods, putting up ads, writing on social media, but all was to no avail. Since then, Grayson rarely traveled anywhere alone without Kinder. "Okay, tell me when to go," he said, finally giving up. Paul almost jumped for joy. He said he had to leave tomorrow night. 2 days on the road, 1 day at the place, and 2 days back. Paul promised that there would be no question about Grayson's presence on the train. His uncle was the train manager, and he would take care of everything. The next day, when Grayson was getting ready, Eden called and said she had come to town and offered to meet. Grayson's heart ached. Eden had been his girlfriend before, and he was even going to propose to her. They used to travel together, he, Eden, and Kinder, and when the dog disappeared, it so happened that they broke up. Eden didn't want that, but Grayson, being very upset about the loss of his friend, couldn't be near Eden without Kinder at the time. He knew he was wrong and was hurting both Eden and himself, but nevertheless, he decided to break up. Grayson apologized and said he couldn't meet her because he was going on a trip. Eden didn't take no for an answer and said she would definitely see him off on his way. Though Grayson realized that he would be devastated once again, he was unable to refuse her. Before boarding was 15 minutes, Grayson had already dropped off his things and walked around the carriage to check if everything was all right. When suddenly he felt that Eden was near, he turned around and saw her. "Hello," she said quietly, walked over and hugged him. Grayson noted that Eden had become even more beautiful. She had always been beautiful, but now, apparently having finally matured, she found some kind of incredible, calm beauty. There was confidence in her gaze, and Grayson suddenly had a keen sense of what a fool he had been all this time. "Are you going away for long?" asked Eden. "No, for 5 days. Maybe we could meet and go someplace when you return." Unexpectedly to himself, Grayson agreed. "We'll definitely meet. I'll be back and I'll see you right away." The journey up there went perfectly smooth, without incident. The passengers were mostly quiet people. Only in one compartment, the young men were a little tipsy, but behaved correctly. When boarding began in the opposite direction, Grayson noticed a female passenger with a child. The little girl was capricious all the time, and the woman could not calm her down. Grayson became tense inside. He loved children, of course, but if the girl would behave the same way on the road, the passengers could start complaining to him, and the complaints would have to be responded to. By evening, the child was crying constantly. The exhausted mother of the girl approached Grayson. "Excuse me, please, when is the next station? Daughter has a fever, and we were packing in a hurry, and I hadn't taken any medicine with us." Grayson looked at his watch. "There's a big stop in 20 minutes. The stop will be 40 minutes. if you write down the name of the medicine, I'll run out and get it." The woman smiled appreciatively. "Thank you so much. I didn't want to leave her alone." 10 minutes later, Grayson brought hot tea for the child, and the anxious mother thanked him for his concern. At the station, Grayson rushed to the conductor from the next carriage and asked him to look after his carriage while he ran off to get medicine. Fortunately, the pharmacy was near the station, and he quickly bought everything he needed. He was about to go back when suddenly he felt someone tugging at his sleeve. He turned around and saw a little girl next to him in dirty old clothes, but with an incredibly intelligent and piercing look. "Mister, could you buy me some medicine? It's for my friend. He's sick." "Which medicine? What's wrong with your friend?" Grayson asked in astonishment. The girl explained that her friend had been lying down for days and wouldn't get up. Grayson was even more puzzled and said that in such a case, it was necessary to go to the doctor. But the girl just shook her head and said that the doctor would probably not accept him. Grayson did not understand anything. Most likely, this girl's friend was also some waif, and the easiest thing in this situation was to turn away. But Grayson could not. He looked at his watch. There was still half an hour before the train left, and he told the girl to walk him to his friend. She rejoiced and led Grayson toward one of the nearby buildings. There was a small park behind the house, and a hut had been constructed of sticks and branches. Grayson looked inside and could not believe his eyes, and a cold sweat ran down his back. "Kinder, how did you end up here?" Grayson whispered in a shock. The dog lifted his head and looked at Grayson with exhausted eyes and whimpered softly. Grayson rushed to the dog. The dog licked him and lay down again tiredly. "Do you know him?" the girl asked in surprise. Grayson nodded and told her that he was his dog who was missing. The girl sighed and, stroking the dog's shaggy head, sobbed and said, "I will miss him very much. But take him, because you can cure him. Don't cry, please. What's your name?" "Lena." "Lena, I promise that as soon as Kinder gets well, we'll come to you, okay?" Lena nodded, and Grayson threw off his jacket, moved Kinder onto it, and carried the dog to the train. Seeing them, the conductor from the next carriage stared out his eyes, but Grayson explained to him that this is his dog, which had been lost a year and a half ago. He also asked to find out if there was a veterinarian among the passengers. His colleague was surprised, but promised to ask. In the carriage, the girl's mother immediately came up to Grayson, and after getting her medicine, once again thanked him. Seeing the sick dog, she asked, "What's wrong with him?" "I don't know. I haven't seen him for a year and a half, and now I found him. But apparently, it's too late." Grayson sat near the dog, who lay staring at one point. He refused to eat and only took a couple of sips of water. That was all. The trip was still about a day, and Grayson was ready to cry in despair. In the evening, he had to leave the dog alone, as it was necessary to distribute the linen to the passengers who had just boarded. Grayson occasionally looked into his compartment, but the dog was still lying motionless in place. Suddenly, he saw the girl's mother rushing around the carriage in terror. She ran up to him, all in tears. "She is gone. I just went to the toilet, and when I came back, the compartment was empty, and no one saw anything." Grayson was in shock. Such an emergency had never happened in his life. The man rushed around the carriage, checking every compartment, but the girl was nowhere to be found. Finally, he opened the door of his compartment and froze. The girl was sitting on the floor, and Kinder's head was on her lap. He was dutifully eating sausage from her hands, while the girl was telling him something. Grayson was afraid to move, even if it was just a small piece of sausage. But Kinder began to eat, and it was a good sign. The girl's mother came to the compartment and took her daughter in her arms, and she carried her child to the compartment, while Grayson stood looking at Kinder and smiling. By evening, Kinder was able to sit up and even went out to the station after Grayson to do his thing. True, he still had no strength to jump back in, but his master helped him. Later, Grayson called Eden and asked her to make an appointment with the vet. "What's wrong?" asked Eden worriedly. "Can you imagine? I found Kinder." "I'll do everything, don't worry," Eden replied readily. Kinder rushed through the park, and nothing reminded of the sick dog who couldn't even walk on his own. Eden and Grayson looked at him and laughed. Grayson finally made up his mind and proposed to her, but he had one more unfinished business. Grayson decided to visit the town where he had found Kinder, and Eden asked him to take her with him. "I don't know if you need it. You'll be upset." "I need to," replied Eden firmly. When they arrived in that town, Grayson realized that he didn't know where to look for Lena at all. She wasn't in that hut in the park, and they didn't meet anyone like her on the streets. Kinder, well, where is your savior? And suddenly, Kinder yowled loudly and rushed somewhere. Eden and Grayson ran after him. The dog led them to a small, dilapidated house and barked loudly. Grayson knocked, and an unkempt-looking woman opened the door for him. "What do you want?" she asked in an inebriated voice. "Does Lena live here?" "Yes, she is over there, in the room. She's sick." Kinder immediately rushed inside. Lena was lying on the bed with a high fever and was already delirious. Grayson, grabbing the girl in his arms, carried her out of this terrible place and took her to the hospital. They came to this town several more times. First, when the girl's mother was deprived of her parental rights. Then, when they were visiting Lena in the orphanage. Finally, Eden said through tears that she couldn't leave the girl there. After that, Eden and Grayson had been gathering the necessary documents for adoption for 6 months, and after going through 7 circles of hell, they finally took Lena to their place. Lena, in a beautiful new dress, was sitting in the back seat of the car with her Kinder in her arms. She was crying from happiness and wiping her tears, burying her face in the dog's fur, while Kinder tactfully pretended not to notice anything.